Okay, we will get started. So thank you all so much for joining us today. We're going to be discussing the new partnership between JobTread and Hotchkiss Insurance. The JobTread founder and CEO, Eric Fortenberry, is joined by Hotchkiss Insurance sales executive, Dan Glanville, to share the benefits of the partnership as well as best practices for how contractors can protect themselves through builder's insurance and more. Please utilize the Q&A or chat tool if you have any questions during the webinar. I'll either answer them on the spot or I'll save them for the end for Dan and Eric to answer. All right, Eric, go ahead and take it away.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you coming out, learn more about our partnership here with Hotchkiss. And, for those of you who aren't aware what JobTread is, it's an all-in-one construction management system. We can help you do everything from estimating, budgeting your jobs to all the project management, scheduling, kind of managing all your subs, your vendors, and then everything on the accounting, the invoicing side. Our goal is to be that all-in-one project management tool for you. And so, a lot of the benefits that you may see is, getting more organized with your business. We can help you increase your profits, win more jobs, and ultimately we want to help our customers build a better business that's more scalable. So some of those key solutions that we offer, again, with the sales and estimating, kind of everything pre-construction, it's going to, again, with building out your budget, sending out your proposals, collecting those signatures, allowing the customers to make selections, having, kind of everything that you may need to have a signed, documented contract with the customer. We can provide you, getting into the job management side with the scheduling, the job tracking, and then on the job finances, helping you manage the cash flow, your AR, your AP, all of those things, and then giving you some additional insight to help you improve your business. We really focus on these 4 key areas. So, that's kind of quick overview. I guess we have this key feature slide. Again, we're not really here to dive into all these features, but just for those who are, now kind of learning about JobTread for the first time, we definitely have a lot of features in here. But today we really want to focus on, being able to provide Hotchkiss Insurance here as a partner and part of the marketplace within JobTread, so that you can, get all your insurance needs covered as well. So I want to introduce Dan Glanville. He's been a good friend of mine. We've seen them at just about every builder show that we go to, especially the local ones here in in Dallas. But these guys are typically out at all the big shows as well. They've got a big presence, can work with, contractors from all over the country. So I'm excited to have Dan join me today. And why don't I just turn it over to you, Dan? Tell us a little bit more about Hotchkiss and what you guys do.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Happy to. Again, Dan Glanville, Hotchkiss Insurance. We are located in Texas. We have several locations here in Texas, but we are licensed in every state. So be happy to work with you in Hawaii, Wisconsin, wherever else you might be watching this from for the recording. So I've been doing this for over 7 years now, working specifically with residential contractors, GCs, builders, and we've kind of seen the gamut of the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to insurance. When people come to me, they'll typically I'll look through their current policies or something like that, and I've seen it all. So I'm here to stay. I've been doing this for 7 years, and I want to retire doing this, so I'm not going anywhere. And when I encountered JobTread for the first time, I think it was last summer, a year and a half ago, Eric, I just saw the value that they were bringing to the clients out there that I'm working with. So I knew it was going to be a great partnership, because I'm striving to do the same thing, is bring value where not everybody realizes that they need a good agent. So that said, I'd love to tell you a little more about, 2 specific things. But before that, I want to go ahead and call out the elephant in the webinar here, which is everybody loves talking about insurance, right? I can shut down a conversation real quickly if I'm at a party and somebody says, "What do you do for a living?" And I say, "Insurance." And I'm like, "Oh, great, we'll see you later." But you need somebody in your court that actually cares about this stuff, wants to dig in with it, and just advises you, because you don't want to dig into it. You want to go build some homes. So that's what I'm here for. That's what I do. I put this at the bottom that, a lot of contractors out there, just like everybody else, right? Even for me, before I got into the insurance industry, for my homeowners and auto policy, I'm just looking for the fastest, cheapest, quickest, whatever, right? Well, then you get into the insurance industry and you realize that not everything works out that way or well when you go that route. So I like to joke that, a lot of those cheap policies are just 800 number and good luck. Hopefully something sticks to the wall if something bad really happens. So what I like to do is, what you're going to do is you're watching this webinar, you're going to call the agent who knows what they're doing with residential builders. You're going to get the right coverage at the right price, maybe even the best price. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes you do get what you pay for on those cheap policies. And then if something bad happens, you're going to contact that same guy. This guy is fine if you want to do that. It's going to be handled just as we all planned. And then you're going to be back to doing what you love to do. So that's the goal. So
Dan, I was just going to say, I just want to reiterate, a lot of people, when you talk about insurance, they don't have that same kind of passion and, care. It's, you can tell it's just kind of their day job, but that's one of the things that I've really recognized about you and really the entire team over there at Hotchkiss is you guys genuinely are very passionate, and care about what you're doing. It's great company that you guys all work for. And so, I just felt like that really did sort of resonate with us. And, as people that we look for and that we want to, go to bat for, I think, I appreciate your passion, man. And knowing that our customers are going to be in good hands, working with you, it's reassuring. So,
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate that. I take this stuff seriously. I talk about it at home. My wife doesn't always want to hear it. I get excited about something in the insurance industry and, but let me do that. That's what I do for a living. I can get excited for you and I'm going to make sure you're covered well. So I appreciate that, Eric. So 2 types of insurance we're going to talk about that most relate to builders like yourself in the residential construction. We can talk about a lot of things. We can cover any kind of insurance need you might have, auto, workers' comp, health and benefits if you want. But 2 things that I thought were most important to talk about on this webinar today would be builder's risk and general liability. They're not the same. So I want to make sure that everybody understands that. And so builder's risk, it's the sticks and bricks. It's the things in your care on that project, the materials and the things that are going to be installed, things like that. So general liability, often a misnomer. It's not general. It's actually pretty specific. So we'll get a little bit more into that. Certainly throw some questions at me. You can play Stump the Insurance Agent if you want. I was joking with Anna earlier that if you do stump me, my catch-all answer is just, it depends. And so I always win that game because I'm just going to say it depends. And then, but that's what I'm here for, to talk it out with you specifically if you do want to get into a question or get some clarification on something. But anyway, we'll keep trudging along. So sticks and bricks, as I said, builder's risk. It's coverage that protects your interest in the structure under construction. It's not just sticks and bricks. It's, I've had scenarios where the appliance package was stolen, for example, off of the project site before it got installed or even after it got installed. So it's a lot more than sticks and bricks, but it's that property or the materials that you're about to install or that are installed in that home. So builder's risk, very important. For especially ground up construction, of course, bank is going to require it, any lender, but we'll go into more things, but things happen. So just in my 7+ years in this career, just in the past few years, really, all these scenarios have happened to one of my clients, maybe even multiple times. I like to be specific because not everybody realizes some of the risks that are out there. That first one, I don't know if you know this, but used paint rags, if they're combined in a trash can, for example, in the garage, that's what happened. It was in the garage and then somebody opened the garage door, and that air that swooped in caught the whatever was coming off of the paint rag. So it wasn't even ignited by anything. But anyway, so crazy scenarios that happen. The whole house went up in flames. There was an arson situation. We've had tornadoes now, and in Texas, you don't have to go very far to get every catastrophe you can imagine. We've had these frozen pipes and flooded homes. I mentioned the theft, and the big thing about theft is actually not just what they stole, but what they damaged to try to steal that stuff. So appliance package, for example, gets dragged out across the wood floor out the door. Now the wood floors have to be replaced, and that was more expensive than the appliance package. So all kinds of things. Hawaii, you might have, something like a tsunami or something that we haven't seen in Texas, but I would love to hear if you guys have any claims that you've seen from people that on a construction site. So, but
was that tornado we had, I think, touchdown what,
just this week, literally? Was
that by close to y'all's office, or is that?
It didn't get that close to my office. Okay, but yeah, it wasn't that far away. So, we've seen. Anyway, if you didn't know, Texas has become the new tornado alley. So. Anyway, don't talk to me about property insurance in Texas right now. It's expensive. But builder's risk, we can cover you. Give me a call, shoot me an email. I'd love to talk about your next project. But lots of things happen. So builder's risk is sort of the basic thing you want. When do you put builder's risk in place? Well, I would say when you're ordering those materials, when you're getting them on the job site, it's a good time to probably do it. Certainly before you pour the foundation, I would say, if you're doing a new construction. We'll talk a little bit more about remodels in a minute, but as soon as you're starting on the remodel, go ahead and make sure you have builder's risk in place. A good agent like myself, I'd give us at least a few days turnaround because there might be further questions. If you're moving load-bearing walls, there's different scenarios where we need to get a few more details about the project. And then it should stop as soon as your interest in the property ceases, you leave, or most common is that the homeowners are moving back in or it's put to its intended use. So I always tell my clients, let's go ahead and get more time than you need on a builder's risk project or policy, because it's actually more expensive to extend that coverage than to get more on the front end. And oftentimes we can get you a pro rata refund if you do finish early. No offense, but how many projects go under the timeline? Maybe with JobTread and different things now at your disposal, maybe you're more on time and on budget than ever before. But that said, it's good to have some padding on the time. We've also do this as a single project. If you're doing more than 5 projects a year, we can talk about doing it on a monthly or annual reporting. Which makes it easier for you. Now you don't have to wait for a certificate for the bank. It's kind of an auto policy. As soon as you tell us, I need a certificate for this address, it's a done deal. So you kind of pay as you go on that one. So
Dan, I was going to say
that's something you could talk to your agent about. So
I was going to throw out one thing, that we're seeing a lot of contractors doing too, is, making sure that they're including that as a cost item in their budget for the project. And sometimes even, putting their margin on top. But, it's something that even though it may increase the overall cost of the project, a lot of the homeowners actually take a lot of, reassurance knowing that that is in place, and that, if something does happen, again, whatever the situation may be, that is something that, I think I've seen a lot of, the more professional contractors are making sure that is included, and it does give peace of mind for, the homeowner.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Eric. I'll also mention on general liability, which we're going to get to. I have clients able to do that as well. And you can add some margin on that, some profitability if you want to. We can talk more about that offline, but it's certainly a value add, I think, when you're going against somebody else, that you're carrying proper insurance. And the fact that it's in your budget and you're showing them the cost of that for them and you're passing that along to them. But that should be a value to your client, that they know things are covered if something goes wrong. So what about remodels? We've mentioned this, but not all remodels need a builder's risk. Homeowners policies sometimes will cover a certain project, but I would say always you should get it in writing. So I've had this scenario where a builder believed the homeowner was getting the insurance, whether under their homeowners or somewhere else. And then the homeowner thought the builder was getting the insurance. And for some reason, it wasn't clear. Something, of course, happened. And now everybody's getting attorneys involved. And it was an ugly, long, drawn out process, costly for time and money, obviously. So don't do that. Get something in writing. If it's a remodel, just make sure that they have something in writing from their homeowner's agent that says, no problem, they can remodel that bathroom and kitchen. If it gets to a certain dollar amount or you're moving certain walls or something like that, let us know or something like that, but something in writing that confirms coverage is still going to be in place. If they're moving out of the home, there needs to be a builder's risk policy. If there's any question, give your agent a call. Those are my pieces of advice for that. So now we're going to move to general liability. So different kind of coverage. This is for you and your business. So if somebody sues you, your business, names your business in a lawsuit, or is going to sue you, they've gotten some kind of communication that's going to happen. It's for third-party bodily injury or property damage. What that means is not you, not your own employee, but if somebody else gets hurt on the job site, if 5 to 10 years down the road, a future homeowner or somebody that's in that home gets injured and or that home, something happens that was a result of an issue of when you built it, we've seen every kind of scenario, but things like a leaky pipe that nobody found out until 3 years later because it was just a drill, a screw or a nail into, and it was a real slow drip in the wall. It was the drywall guy, don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but slow drip. Now there's mold. Now there's damage to all kinds of drywall and wood floors and things like that. But it wasn't found until years later. So a good general liability policy should cover you for these scenarios, and it's going to defend you, pay for the legal costs, and pay if you're held legally liable. So that's the misnomer. It's called general liability. It's not as general as you might think. There's a lot of things it doesn't cover. I'm going to tell you a few things that it specifically definitely does not cover. But it does cover you from bodily injury, again, for a third party. So kids are playing, soccer inside that new shell of a house that you just put up. It's not finished, or they're playing hide and seek and they fall off the rafters. That's happened before. And now their parent sues you because you didn't have proper fencing and security to keep their kids out of your job site. Crazy as it sounds, but instead of having to call your own attorney, that's what general liability is going to do. Property damage, something falls off that and damages somebody's car next door, all kinds of things happen. That house catches fire and now it actually damages the neighbor's house as well. Those are all liability issues, paying for somebody else's property. So your completed work, we talked about that. So in the state of Texas, you're on the hook for 10 years for anything you build. So I don't know what it is in Hawaii or Wisconsin. If you want to chat in the chat box and let us know if you know what the answer is for that. But the point is you're on the hook for what you built for quite a while. So if something happens down the road, could be that subcontractor that installed that thing is no longer in business, or they're not paying for insurance. They stopped paying for insurance, they lapsed in coverage or something like that. Now all of a sudden you're in that lawsuit. You want to have defense, and that's what general liability is going to do for you. A lot of things it doesn't cover. I could have a huge slide that just talks. There's a reason why these policies are 50 pages sometimes, but again, that's why I'm here. I get paid to do this, but just a few things. Your work, warranty issues are not general liability concerns. So if you need to go fix something that's not working how it's supposed to, that dishwasher that you installed is not working correctly, that's not an insurance issue. But if that dishwasher is leaking and now damages all the wood floors or enough that you have to replace all the wood floors, that's potentially going to be paid for by the general liability policy. So it's that resulting damage, and that should be covered under a good GL policy. Just a few kind of things that are definitely not covered are pollution, cyber, professional design. So if you're drawing up the plans, if you're an architect stamping these things and building, we need to get you a professional policy as well. If you're selling plans, talk to me about that too. That's something, but those are things not covered. Auto accidents should be on auto policy. I will mention that on a good GL policy, we can certainly, if you don't own a truck under your company name, we still can sometimes endorse the general liability policy to give you some coverage. If, let's say, your employee gets in an accident to or from that job site and your company gets named in the auto lawsuit, we can get you some coverage on your GL policy for that. Employee injury, that's a work comp issue, not a general liability issue, but there's lots of scenarios we can talk about, but general liability, specifically third party bodily injury, property damage. And I've had it save several of my clients have been saved because they had general liability coverage. It's one of those kinds of things that people don't think they need it until something really bad happens, and it would have put them out of business. So if they didn't. So this is just one slide, risk transfer. This could be a whole webinar, but I'm going to save you tonight. And I want to shout out to Cromines Law Firm, who's also on the JobTread marketplace with Hotchkiss Insurance. They have a contracts package that you should look into if you don't already have something like that. And they will make it state specific for Wisconsin, Hawaii, whatever state you might be in, Texas. So contracts, risk transfer go hand in hand with your insurance. And I put this up there that risk transfer is better than paying more for your insurance today and in the future. So you should require written contracts from every one of your subcontractors. We kind of have a joke that, in certain places in Texas that maybe a handshake still works, but wouldn't you rather have some things in writing, especially your major subs? You should have something in writing that stipulates that their insurance policy is going to go first, defend you, hold you harmless, and indemnify you. And that's all fancy language for they have to go first. If they messed up, they need to cover the mess up first and make sure you don't have to pay for any of that mistake. So where your general liability policy sometimes comes in handy though is, man, they might not have a great insurance policy, and you never know unless I see the policy. I won't necessarily know, but your liability policy might have to step into that gap. The other part of this is, you might have a subcontractor and you've gotten a certificate of insurance from them. That's just a piece of paper. I hate to tell you, but as a piece of paper that was printed that day that said they had paid their insurance up to that day and they had coverage up to that day. The next day, they might have stopped paying for insurance, and that's happened before. So just a certificate of insurance, not enough these days. You need to have a contract with them so that their insurance company has to defend you because it's in writing. So again, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to pretend like I am, but I work hand in hand with attorneys all the time on these kinds of matters. And I'm happy to be your first call and maybe save you that hourly fee. I don't charge hourly. So you can call me first and ask me some of these kind of questions. And then at some point, I'll probably tell you, okay, now you probably need to go get a little bit more legal advice or go get that contracts package that we talked about from Cromines or another firm. So that's all I'm going to say about risk transfer, but it's something you need to do in order to protect you from paying more premium, your general liability or other policy paying for somebody else's mess up that you shouldn't really have to be paying for. So again, happy to take any questions on any specifics, but we're coming to a close here. And I just want to tell you that, again, this is what I love to do. So don't spend your time reading fine print of policies. Don't sit there questioning whether you should or shouldn't get a certain kind of policy. Call the pros. I'm happy to take a phone call I have clients that call me for any given situation, just, hey, what would happen if, I love I have a friend who this might have happened to, and, we all know it's them. What would one do in that scenario? So I love going through that kind of stuff with people. I'm happy to dig deeper into risk transfer stuff. I give a lot of free advice. So give me a shout. I'm in the marketplace. Shoot me an email, and happy to get to know you better. Again, a shout out for Cromeans Law. You can find us both on JobTread's marketplace, and we're just excited to be in partnership with JobTread and be happy to help any of you guys out. As you're looking at your general liability policy, not sure if it's any good, or if your agent, you just want a second opinion on something, give me a shout, send it to me. We'll chat about it. Yeah, happy to work with you.
Awesome. Appreciate that, Dan. Pretty thorough overview there of, both builder's risk, general liability. And I'm going to hop in and kind of show everyone where you can find Hotchkiss in the marketplace here in just a second. But, one follow-up question I had there was, so you said, hey, you're happy to kind of take a look at, if your subs have a policy, and you're not really sure if it's, good or not. Is that something where they could send that to you and you can review that, or do they need to, is that where they need to have an attorney review it, or, kind of what are your thoughts on that, just to make sure everybody is, got subs who are fully covered and, are going to be the first line of defense there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Eric. And I would say, with the contract, you should be asking for their certificate of insurance. They should be adding the GC or whoever you are, the remodeler, as an additional insured on their policy. At that point, I'm happy. I have clients that send me that certificate with the contract and say, hey, can you see if there's anything here that we need to look into further? I can typically, on that certificate of insurance, it gives me a few details, just enough to know who the carrier is that they're working with, the insurance company, the agent. I can look them up and do a little research on that end. And I can typically see what kind of exclusions that carrier sometimes puts on those policies. And at that point, I can get involved with that agent and specifically just say, hey, on behalf of my client, would you mind sending us a few of those exclusions, endorsements, specifically these 3 or 4 pages of the policy? I'd like to read into them further, something like that. You don't need to dig into the weeds too much. There's things that you can pay for that would review at even drill down really far. You don't need to get into that. I'm happy to do that for no cost, and not take too much of your time. So good question.
And that's awesome. All right, let's see here. So, again, to get in contact with Dan, we have now added them to the JobTread marketplace. So I think it's my next slide here. As my live demo. It's not not too much of a live demo here, but I'm just going to show you real quickly. So again, from JobTread, over here in the settings, you can go to the marketplace, and we've now got Hotchkiss added as a as an additional partner here. And so right here you can just click on this tile, and that's going to take you to this form, which essentially is going to be pre-filled out with all your information from your profile in JobTread. If you want to kind of give them quick overview, synopsis, give them some comments, kind of little intro there, what you're looking for, what your interests are, or you can probably leave it blank. But essentially sending this is going to get you connected with Dan, where he can hop on the phone with you or answer questions via email, kind of whatever works for you. But extremely responsive. We'll be the best person to answer any of your detailed questions, and then again get you some quotes and kind of get you some policies in place that will help make sure that you've got your business protected. Again, we felt that this made total sense for us to be able to provide this. At the end of the day, we want all of our customers to make sure that you're protected. That worst case scenario, it's super important that you've got your contracts in place and you've got your insurance, because one God forbid mistake of some sort, one accident, one injury, one incident can cost you tremendously, and it's just not worth the risk. And especially here with this, with these insurance policies, being able to, charge that and basically recoup your cost within your jobs. If that's, something that you're doing, again, there really is, it doesn't have to be any additional cost to you, but it's going to give you peace of mind. It's going to give your customers peace of mind. So, I highly recommend everyone, make sure that you get up to speed on that, talk to Dan, learn, what your state's requirements are, what your job requirements are. Every project, is different. And so, it's a really great resource, and we appreciate Dan's willingness to, to be that point of contact for everyone here at JobTread whenever you have those questions, or, again, just even to get a second opinion on, policy, see if they can get you a better policy, better price. It's always good to, to kind of make sure that you're covered. And so, yeah, just want to thank you, Dan, for, for agreeing to, to partner up with us, and, for taking care of our customers. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, Eric, and thanks for having me. And I do want to just mention, last thing is that it doesn't cost any more to work with somebody like me. We're an independent agency, and it doesn't cost you extra from what you would buy it from somewhere else. So that's just us. This is what we do. And typically, most of my clients are paying less because they're working with us, because we do have competing carriers, multiple, on both builder's risk and general liability. And I feel like we have kind of that secret sauce, so to speak, for the residential construction world out there. So
awesome. Thank you. All right. It looks like we do have a few questions that came directly in. So one of them is, so Dan, this is for you. Does Hotchkiss Insurance provide insurance coverage for residential and commercial insurance? And what if I have a business that does both? Will it kind of transfer? What does that look like?
Great question. And the answer is yes. Actually, the commercial side, typically the rates are even a little lower. And we're happy to, we have policies that we can put both of those. They'll just be two categories on the same policy. You'll have residential sub-cost and payroll, and then commercial sub-cost and payroll, or sales. So, yep, great question. And we are happy to work with both.
Fantastic. All right. Another question is about the builder's risk. So is that based on location, or can it cover all equipment, maybe vehicles, job site, and my business office location, as long as it's all kind of tied to a job?
So I'm not sure if I totally understand the question, but so builder's risk is going to be for specifically the materials that are going to be installed or going into a building. So those sticks and bricks, appliance package, HVAC equipment, things like that. If you have your own personal equipment, trucks, let's say tools, machinery, things like that, we would cover that on what's called an inland marine policy, equipment policy. So we can certainly do that. We'll tie that into a package typically with the general liability, but we can do that on its own as well. A truck should go on if it's owned by the company, it should technically be on a commercial auto policy. We can talk about that. Sometimes it's titled under your personal name. And in that case, you can keep it under your personal auto insurance, but there's reasons to separate your personal and your, commercial risk on that kind of stuff. So we can talk about that, but yeah, we can cover just about everything that you can, that you need. So.
Okay, so it sounds like Hotchkiss can really kind of cover all aspects of insurance for the company, including workers' comp as well, or no?
Correct. Yeah, we just didn't drill down. There's too many different things you can purchase from me, but for you specifically, general liability, builder's risk is what we wanted to talk about tonight. But yes, certainly workers' comp, auto. If you own a building, we certainly put that on a property policy. Umbrella coverage, we didn't talk about that, but that's, if you want more than $1 million, then we start doing an umbrella, and that goes over top of that $1 million general liability policy. We can talk about your health and benefits. Feel free to look us up. Our website shares all the other coverage and folks that we work with. So
great. And then if there are any other questions, please add them to the chat box. Another question that did come in is if I'm changing my business name or merging companies, are the policies still valid, after so many years of, doing a project and something happens as a result of my work? So how is that transferred if my companies merge or change names?
That is a great question. And there's one of my, tried to stump me, and I'm going to say it depends. That's my answer. But I'm happy to chat with you more offline. So if you are merging with somebody else, but you still would control 51% or more of that new entity that's now merged, there's a potential that you can continue with the same policy and just, change the name, or if it's a DBA, but it's always a little different. So is it an asset purchase versus a stock and liability type purchase? So it gets a little bit in the weeds there, as you can tell, but I've walked through all those scenarios with my clients. So depends on what you're doing. If you're creating a new entity, typically brand new entity, new federal ID number, it's going to be a new policy that you're going to cancel your old one, but you can list your old company on that new policy as a second named insured or additional insured, things like that. So there's ways to still cover that liability going on in the future. It just depends on now who you're partnering with or that new entity. So.
Fantastic. Awesome. And what is your turnaround time to get a quote for a policy? If we did reach out to you through JobTread, what does that look like?
So if it's during the business week, Monday through Friday, and it's, I'd say before 5 o'clock Central Time, could be just a few hours or even faster. So we have a team behind us that I've been preparing for this moment when we flip the switch with JobTread, that we are going to be ready for an influx of, builder's risk quotes that we're going to need to do quickly. And we already do that. But if, you send us hundreds, we'll be just fine. And we have a team behind ready to do that. But it can be a few hours. Sometimes if it's a, larger than $2 million structure, I'll say, it can take, it has to go up, 1 or 2 levels up the ladder sometimes. But some of these we can quote online and get approved within an hour even or less if we have all the information we need. So again, sometimes it's a $10 million project and it's out in the middle of nowhere with no fire department nearby. There's a lot more questions that come into play and some other things like that. But yeah, typically pretty quick. There's not too many people that get it quicker turned around than we do. So
great. We have a few more questions that came in. So we do custom remodels and every project is different, of course. And so what information do you need to know about the projects in order to get a quote from you? And how much do we need to really know about the projects to start that request process?
Yeah, great question. So my first question would be, are they moving out? So of the home or the structure. So if they are, we certainly need to get coverage for the existing home, which if it's a large custom, maybe it's $1 million home or more that's already existing, and then you're going to be adding on or remodeling some portion of that or something like that. So those might require a little more information. If you're moving load-bearing walls, for example, if you're doing a large addition, sometimes we need to see the budget and or the plans, things like that for the underwriter to kind of get their head around it. But so I would say it doesn't take a lot of extra information, but if it gets into higher, value existing home that we need to have covered as well, it might take a little more information. So, but if you're talking about it's a $200,000 remodel, but they're staying in the home, that doesn't take a lot of, it's address, how much is the portion you're working on? What are you doing? And what's the timeline you think you're going to get this done in? Those are basically the things we would ask. So.
Great. All right. And is there a certain dollar amount for the job that would make it required to have builder's risk policy attached to it?
Again, there's my answer of it depends. So it's that back to the homeowner's policy. Again, if that family is staying there and they have a homeowner's policy, obviously they should reach out to their homeowner's agent and say, hey, what are the parameters that we still have coverage? And sometimes it's a dollar amount. Sometimes it's over $200,000 projects, or if it could be something like if you're opening the roof up, or moving a load bearing wall, things like that. So yeah, again, it depends, and I hate to do that to you, but there's my email. Please shoot me a quick, email, and then I promise I don't ask a million questions. I know exactly what to ask when I know the project, a little bit more, but address, the value, kind of what you're doing, and I can give you a pretty good idea of the cost and what else we might need to know. So,
Dan, one follow-up. I mean, are there certain types of like work that, typically you would always want to get, builder's risk and policy in place, or, I mean, is there, maybe more common, trades that, when they're involved in a job that, you typically, see more incidents and more claims, more accidents happening than others?
That's a great question. Certainly any kind of ground up construction, you need to have builder's risk. If you're adding a wing to a home or building a brand new home, for example, those certainly need builder's risk. As far as the higher risk, I don't want to throw any trades under the bus too much, but I would say if it's more than a remodel of a bathroom and kitchen, certainly you probably should have some builder's risk in place. And a lot of times that's protecting you and your business from getting sued for something that goes wrong. So, I've seen it where the electrical, it was an older home and they were adding on to it, and it was old electrical in the existing home. And now the electrician is tying into that, and it was done improperly, and now the whole house burned up. And so, most electricians probably they know exactly what to do in that scenario, and that wouldn't happen. But sometimes things like that happen. Plumbers, like when the house floods, that's going to be an expensive one, and that can happen to the best plumber. It's not always their fault. It's tying into old pipes or a scenario that wasn't ideal or something like that. Or could be that drywall guy punched a hole in that brand new pipe. Nobody knew it. Now there's a slow leak, and now you have $50,000 worth of floor and cabinet damage or something like that. So I just threw out 3, but yeah, I would say, if you're doing more than a $50,000 to $100,000 job and nobody's asked you to get builder's risk, typically if there's a bank involved, they're going to require it, but nobody's asked you. I would still challenge you to go get it quoted and present it to that client and tell them you would prefer that this was covered under builder's risk. Because it's one of those types of things where then nobody has to get sued or point fingers. If something bad happens, here's the builder's risk policy, we paid for it. It was, we're looking at rates like 20 cents. So we're talking about if it's $1 million policy that you're looking to get, $1 million new construction home in Texas might cost you $2,000 for the year to cover. That's cheaper than a homeowner's policy, So, and that's a whole year's worth of coverage. If you're doing a remodel for 6 months or 3 months, a couple $100,000, we're talking about hundreds of dollars. Why not pay that? So
seems like a no-brainer.
Yeah.
What about, we have a lot of, outdoor living, like even pool builders. Those projects can often be north of $100,000. Is there a need, for a pool, someone, who's out in the backyard versus in the main, dwelling? Are there, what about that?
That's a very good question, Eric. And I don't think we get enough builder's risk requests for pools, for pool projects. Now, is there as many risks in that of fire or theft or things like that? Maybe not. But certainly a tornado comes through, certainly theft of the pool equipment, which is probably going to be installed one of the last things, obviously. So maybe there's not as much, but I certainly, if you're going to do a very large custom pool and maybe cabana and some other things, outdoor kitchen, I think you should have a builder's risk policy. Again, protect your own company, pass that on to your client. If they say, no, we don't need this, we don't want it, get that in writing so that if something bad happens, hey, I offered you this coverage. It was a few $100s. You didn't want it. These are just things that are going to get you off of that, out of that lawsuit or those bad situations that happen that it's like, So, no, I think that's a great question. And I would say on those larger ones, you should at least get the quote. And that's because I see a pool installation company as somebody just like any other home builder. You're a residential contractor, you're a residential GC. You just happen to maybe stay outside for the most part, but
Sure. And just to be very specific, so for each project, you would want to get a separate builder's risk policy for. So we would, our customers would reach out to you for each project, kind of with the specifics of that project, and then you would get them that policy.
You don't have to. If you're going to do multiple 5 jobs or more, I'd say let's look into a reporting policy for you. Basically, we shoot you every month a report that says this is what you reported to us last month. These are the 3 projects you're currently working on and the values. And now you're paying monthly instead of a lump sum on those. There's an annual report that you can also do. You estimate what you think you're going to do this year. You pay monthly, and then there's an audit at the end. Not everybody loves the audit, or whatever, because you might owe more. It should all be very predictable though. There's a rate. And if you undershot on the estimate at the beginning, you're going to know what you're going to pay at the end. But some people just enjoy that monthly reminder of like, oh yeah, I'm going to put, we just finished that one project, so we're going to delete that one and we're going to add 2 more that we just started this month. I think that's a great way to cash flow it. It's an easy way to, if there's banks always asking you for a certificate of insurance and for the builder's risk, or then you can just shoot them. We can send them a certificate that same hour without going through the application and getting it quoted and having you pay for it. So that's the beauty of doing a reporting policy. One shots though are typically going to be required for anything over $2 million projects. They have to go on their own policy. So.
Okay. So, and if you did the ongoing, like the monthly or annual thing, do you give is there some sort of a breakdown so that or like how would I know how much to charge for each of the projects? Like, do they just kind of look at the total volume of the size of the dollar amount of the project, and then kind of sort of back into that, if it's 20 cents or whatever it is per dollar, they can, that's how they
again, everything I do, I want it to be as predictable as possible. I don't want any surprises and people to come to the end. I didn't know it was going to cost that much. You're going to know exactly what you're paying each month. So the only variable would be if you thought it was going to be a 6-month remodel and it ends up being a 10-month remodel, then you're going to pay each month for those extra 4 months that the timeline was longer or something like that. But it usually breaks down a 12-month policy. You kind of, it's pretty much break even at 8 months on the monthly report. So it's kind of a wash. You might save a little bit money on the monthly report if you're doing these quickly, but these days with short supply of materials and labor and things like that, projects are going over. And I think having the cash flow thing just makes it worthwhile on the reports. But again, it's up to your business. And this is the kind of conversation I have with each individual. How many projects are you doing? How many remodels? If you're doing very large remodels, it might not fit on the reporting policy. You might have to go, we just get a one shot is what we call those on per project. But yeah,
that makes sense.
Fantastic. I love your approach, Dan, with just each business is unique and they handle different jobs. And so let's talk about it. Let's discuss what your needs are and only get you what you need. And so I really appreciate that approach. And I know us here at JobTread, working with you the past several months, we've found that you have a very authentic way of working with your customers, but also with us. And so that transparency is key. So thank you for that. All right. Well, that concludes our questions. And so we'll just wrap this up. So if you're not currently using JobTread, or if you have any questions about our partnership with Hotchkiss Insurance, we'd love to continue the conversation. If you're a JobTread user, you can reach out to your customer success manager and or Dan. And then any future JobTread customers can simply schedule a demo at jobtread.com/demo. Also, feel free to check out our future and recorded webinars at jobtread.com/webinars. They're all free and open to the public. Thank you again for joining us today.